How's it going, class? All right, so you should be in Echo right now under the Values and Justices project. If you're having trouble with Echo at all, let me know. Send me an email. Come see me after school. I'll help you with that. We're going to be taking a look in this segment, group and individual rubrics for the project, as well as the knows and need to knows. So we want to see how you're going to be graded and what you really need to know in order to get a good grade on the project overall. So if you click on the rubrics link here under project guidelines, it'll bring you up to a page where you can access both a group and an individual. I'd like you to open up both of those along with me so we can take a look at them together. The group rubric. You're going to be graded on your group's attempt to gather evidence to support your argument for this trial and your preparation for this trial. So you're going to basically have a document which has all your evidence and all your arguments and how you're going to use them on the day of the trial. So that's kind of what we're going to be looking at in terms of a document when we're looking at your group work. These other bullet points, these top 6, these are social studies content ones. These are going to be, number 1, they're going to be on the Regents as well. But number 2, we're expecting to see links between these early content bullets, these things like the Articles of Confederation, the Constitution, the Federalist versus Anti-Federalist, the Bill of Rights. We're looking for links between those and the modern Supreme Court cases that you were studying to support your argument. So we're looking for that kind of unifying theme and approach to social studies of connecting the past to today. So that's what we're looking for in the social studies section of the rubric. As we go on, your written work, it should be written well. You guys are 11th graders. There should be proper spelling, grammar, mechanics, few to no typos for the 20 points there. In addition, your sources that you're using, they need to be cited in MLA. We're no longer in the day and age where you can just willy-nilly pull sources and information and use them however you want. There's copyrights, people claim this information, they own this information, and you can get into a lot of financial and legal troubles by not citing your sources properly. So we really need you to do that. It's very important going forward for both this project, this course, and your lives in general. And of course, your collaboration, the collaboration that we foster here at Tech Valley. Are you using your team contract? Are you upholding your team contract? Are your pacing charts being utilized in a proper way and deadlines being met? Are you seeking feedback from your peers? Are you seeking feedback from us? So that and a few other things correlate to the collaboration aspect of the group rubric at least. As for the individual rubric, we're going to be looking at your individual performance in the trial itself. So no matter if you're a judge or a lawyer, are you adhering to the role that you have been set for the trial? Are you staying in that role? Are you not breaking that role of who you're pretending to be? Are you acting professionally? Do you have a good tone of voice? Are you presenting your information clearly? And we're also mainly looking for your counter arguments as well. It's kind of easy to come up with an argument for a trial in preparation, but what the real hard part is, both in our mock Supreme Court case and in real cases in general, is counter arguments. So if you're a lawyer and you present an argument in a particular case that you think really supports your claim, and the judges come at you and say, well, what about this other Supreme Court case that contradicts that? What's your response going to be? What is your counter argument going to be? So thinking about that is really important, and it's going to require you to think on your feet a little bit. So that's going to be a little tricky part of this. In addition to that, we're also going to be looking at your opening, closing statements if you're a lawyer, or your written decision if you're a judge, which is kind of going to be your overall argument summarized into one statement. As far as the communication, similar to the group rubric, we're looking for you to be communicating well. Is there an appropriate tone of voice? Are you speaking clearly? Are you staying within your role? Are you dressed professionally? That's very important as well. Is your written work grammatically correct? Spelling, grammar, mechanics, all the things I talked about in the group rubric, are those adhered to as well in your individual written work? So if you have any questions on that, just let me know. Send me an email or come see me after school. As for the knows and need to knows, there's another link in Echo over here. Knows and need to knows, right at the bottom of project guidelines. So if you open that up, brings up the knows and need to knows for the project. If you weren't here in class, your classmates did a really great job of coming up with some need to knows, some really good questions going forward. So we're going to go through those now. Have our rights been upheld? Whose responsibility is it to protect our rights? Those two are going to be answered in workshops as we proceed through the project. Are there going to be any witnesses? That's really important. Okay, the Supreme Court cases are different than criminal court cases. The Supreme Court hears cases that are controversial, and usually it happens when kind of a snowball effect occurs, when there's just tons and tons of controversial events happening where it divides the country literally in two on how to react to a certain issue. And then when we can't make a decision, it goes up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court kind of gives the final say, saying, okay, as the federal government, in keeping in mind our Constitution and our founding beliefs and civic values, this is how we believe the situation should be handled. So there's going to be no witnesses for this case, in other words. Mitigate basically means to stop, and that's really within the context of a workshop that we're going to do, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. What were some of the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation? We're going to do a workshop on that. Same with the civic value question. Is there a specific part of the American Revolution we're going to be focusing on? No, we're going to be looking at the whole thing. Why would any government support an overthrow of their own body? That's interesting question. Hopefully you'll be able to answer that as time goes on. Is the class going to be split up into 2 different courts? No, we're going to do one huge trial. I know in the past that you've done some court case projects where there's 2 different courts. This is going to be just one. Will we be able to choose our stances on the trial? No, those are going to be assigned, similar to the Explorers project that you did in Global last year with Ms. Ezzo. Where are we doing the Supreme Court case? We are doing it actually at Albany Law School. They have a mock courtroom that their law students use when they do similar things like this. So we're going to be able to use that as well. So it's going to give you a really authentic setting to go into that role of either a lawyer or a judge. Why do we have rights? We'll answer that hopefully in this project as well. What counts as relevant evidence? Okay, mainly the evidence we're looking for you to use are these landmark Supreme Court cases. And we're going to provide you links and resources in order to really dwell into those. But we're looking for relevant evidence to be these landmark Supreme Court cases. Because as I previously said, they represent when the federal government has to make a decision on something very important in our country's history. And how they decide that, they use Constitution and the ideals of the Constitution in our founding government in order to make that decision a lot of the time. Are we going to be taught how to organize logically the sequences of claims? Yeah, we're going to have a lawyer, Ms. Paglia, come in. And she's going to help you guys structure your arguments and present your evidence in a very effective way. So that's going to be a really authentic resource for you to use. And lastly, what are our limits on the modern day events? We consider modern to be the last 50 years or so. So we're looking, me and Mr. Morrill have talked about it, and we said 1950 up to the present day would be good. That's kind of what we consider to be modern. Anything before that is a little too early, so that should answer your question there. If you have any questions on the need to knows or any of the rubrics, like I said, just let me know. Now we're going to dwell into our first workshop, our first social studies workshop, and that's going to be on comparing and contrasting the American colonies prior to the American government being formed.